Mets top prospect Nolan McLean made his MLB debut on Saturday, and he could not have been better, offering the Mets a glimmer of hope in what has been a brutal stretch as of late.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Now, at the end of the show on yesterday, I asked an impossible question out of Nolan McLean. And it was the expectation that many had for him going into his start on Saturday, one that was not fair. Could Nolan McLean alone save the Mets season? And the crazy thing about that is I think he just might have. He somehow met the unfair expectation that he alone could come in and be some catalyst of change. And obviously, a lot's got to happen after what was a great game on Saturday. But this Mets team just needed something. They needed something to shake it up, to shake up the vibes, to just do anything differently to hopefully plot a new course for this season and get this team on track. And what we watched on Saturday is one of the most impressive debuts ever in Mets franchise history. By the numbers, he and Matt Harvey stand alone as the only pitchers who have ever made their MLB debut for the Mets, have struck out 8, and have not given up a run in 5 innings pitched. The only ones. DeGrom, I think he gave up 1 to the Yankees in a 1-0 loss on the top of my head. We know Steven Matz did all that work with the bat and had a good start, but he might have given up a couple of runs. That's it, though. It's Harvey and McLean. It was a thrilling debut for McLean, who is out there throwing balls that don't really compute. Like the way that he pitches, it's like watching, if you've seen blitzball, which is modern day wiffle ball, just it's wiffle ball but harder. These balls that have these incredible, a break to it when you play. I've only seen videos of it. I've never played, but if you watch blitzball, that's what Nolan McLean is doing with an actual baseball. This spin that we've talked about, you see it on full display, and it's just, I don't know how you square that any of his pitches up when he throws his breakers. First batter he faces comes out, 96 miles per hour in on Randy Arozarena. It's a ball. He then throws a sweeper away that Arozarena swings through. And then he dots 2 on the black, in the outside corner, to strike him out. Just sharp, nasty sweepers that Randy Arozarena did not know what to do with those pitches. Just kept his bat on his shoulder and walked to the dugout. 2 batters later, after a walk and a ground out, he strikes out Josh Naylor on a nasty curveball and comes off the mound to great applause. And every single inning, he was seemingly coming off the mound with a strikeout or with an incredible play, which we'll talk about in a second. Second inning was a 1-2-3 frame for McLean. Ground out to Lindor, pop up to Lindor, then another strikeout to end an inning. And that one was a changeup that he had yet to throw up to that point, but just pulls a changeup out of his bag to get a strikeout. Third inning is where we really saw what Nolan McLean is made of and why this guy has a chance to be a very good starting pitcher for the New York Mets for a long time. This is his debut. Never been on an MLB mound before this. Facing the 8 and 9 batters, he issues 2 walks. So now he's got to go up against the top of the Mariners lineup, some really good hitters with 2 guys on base. Did it look like it fazed him at all? No. They interviewed his dad during the game, and he talked about how competitive his son is, how he learned at a young age that if he turned something into a competition, whether it was athletics or his homework, if he made it a competition, Nolan McLean would step up his game and meet that competition, that challenge. And he said it himself, too, when he met with the media before his MLB debut. He just talked about his love for competing. Well, you saw in that moment where he was not fazed, did not seem scared. Next batter that he faces, oh, yeah, He's familiar. He struck him out to lead off the game. It's Randy Arozarena again. And this time, instead of trying to get him out with sweepers, he ends up blowing him away with a fastball up in the zone. Then he gives up a single to Cal Raleigh, which loads the bases. And then comes the highlight of the day. Julio Rodriguez hits a comebacker to McLean. McLean, it only was a comebacker because of some incredible reflexes as he finishes towards first base and he reaches behind the back, somehow comes up with a baseball, which was the really impressive part of the play. That was the part that's going to, make the highlight reel. But the thing that I was actually more impressed with, really, was the fact that he, without hesitation, delivers a strike to second base to start a 1-4-3 double play to get out of the inning. To get out of a bases-loaded jam, he's the one that steps up and makes that play. Wasn't wondering, do I go home with it? Wasn't wondering, do I just go to first? No. Knew what to do with the baseball. I'm going to second, and gets that double play turn to escape the jam. And if this ends up being what we all hope it is, which is a massive turning point for the New York Mets, and somehow this is what sparked them and they roll from here and they get back to being a good baseball team, that play could be a singular moment where you think, man, what could have happened differently? If that ball gets through and McLean gives up a couple runs, and then who knows? But he sticks his glove out. He makes the play. Big smiles. He comes off the mound. The Mets get him a run the next half inning there. Leadoff single by Brett Beatty. RBI double from Francisco Lindor. Fourth inning, got to hold up that run. What does he do? 1-2-3 frame with a couple of strikeouts. Fifth inning, gives up a leadoff single. Pass ball puts a runner in scoring position, but Francisco Lindor makes a great catch on a pop-up. McLean then gets another strikeout, and then Randy Arozarena back up again, grounds out to end the inning. Now, I wasn't sure if he was going to go back out for the sixth. I was happy that Randy grounded out on like the first pitch or the second pitch of that at bat. So there was at least a chance, because I figured if he got past 85 pitches, probably would have been the end of the day for McLean. He was at 81 pitches. So Carlos Mendoza sends it back out there. He has to face Cal Raleigh, who ends up drawing a walk. Keep him in there to face Julio Rodriguez, and he strikes him out. And that was the end of the day for McLean. 5 1/3 innings pitched, no runs on 2 hits allowed, 4 walks, struck out 8. Again, we're going to talk about him more in the next segment. Want to compare him to Harvey a little bit, what Harvey did in his debut compared to McLean, all that good stuff. So we will go through that in a minute and also talk more about the Arsenal and what this means moving forward. Should they have promoted him earlier? All that stuff in the next segment. But to talk about the rest of this game, Gregory Soto continues to be arguably the best addition the Mets made at the deadline, and his trade came a week before and kind of went under the radar now, but he continues to be excellent, gets Josh Naylor to fly out, although I will say Naylor sort of gave one a ride, but Juan Soto makes a nice catch. Then he strikes out Eugenio Suarez to end that inning, comes back out for the seventh, 1-2-3 frame. So Gregory Soto, a very underrated aspect to the Mets win here. Mets rally in the bottom half of the seventh, leadoff single again by Brett Beatty, who then steals second. Francisco Lindor singles, steals second base, first shortstop in MLB history to have 5 seasons of 20 stolen bases and 20 home runs. Sometimes Lindor still ends up being underrated, and he is finally swinging a good bat. Juan Soto hits a sac fly. Nimmo gets a base hit. Horrible send. I don't know why they sent Lindor trying to score on that. He was out by a mile. So Lindor gets gunned out at the plate, but Pete Alonso ends up picking everybody up to get an insurance run. He hits an RBI double, his 31st double of the season, tying his career high, which is set last year, which I find a little bit interesting because everyone remembers how bad Pete was last year, but he actually did set a career high in doubles with 31, had 30 in his rookie season, never got past the 30 mark beyond that until last year. Now he's at 31, got a great chance to have his first 40 double season of his career, and he cashed in his 100th RBI, which is pretty cool too. Now, aggressive managing by Carlos Mendoza, and I loved it. Part of it was due to some lack of availability out of his bullpen, but we did see Reed Garrett up at one point, and he didn't pitch in this game. So Reed Garrett could have been the option in the 8th inning. He goes right to Edwin Diaz for a 6-out save, knowing the importance of that game, and Edwin got the job done. Struck out 2 in the 8th inning. Did give up a solo homer in the 9th, but got all 6 outs that he needed for his 24th save of the season. Needed 31 pitches to do it, but the Mets got a win that they desperately needed. And now hopefully they can build off of this moving forward. But what we're going to talk about next is more on McLean, what he looked like in this debut, and what it means for this team moving forward. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Day Hue, and so is this hat that I'm wearing. For Mets fans like me, this one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. This hat pairs perfectly with my usual gear, so it doesn't have to replace my team's logo stuff, but it just adds to my lineup. It's the kind of hat that reps your team without screaming it, subtle, but still says everything, and also versatile. If you're a Knicks fan, you can wear this to a Knicks game or a Mets game. You're good to go, and it's not just hats. You can also check out these split shade gloves for golf. They're made for the course, the perfect gift for the fan that has everything. And right now, you can get 15% off with the code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue, HUE.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I would love to get there by the end of the season. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. So again, Nolan McLean is just the second pitcher in Mets history to strike out 8 or more in his MLB debut without giving up a run across 5 or more innings pitched. The other guy who did it was Matt Harvey back in 2012, July 26th, 2012. Mets win that game by a score of 3-1. Harvey goes 5 1/3, so maybe that's the lucky number. He allowed 3 hits, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts. I wanted to go back and just compare. Like, am I watching a pitcher that looks like Matt Harvey did back then? And the crazy thing, looking back at Harvey's debut, you watch him side to side, and this is no disrespect to Matt Harvey, who was unbelievable. It's like they're playing a different game because the break that Nolan McLean is getting, and trust me, if Matt Harvey had the ability to have TrackMan and pitch mapping and all these different things, he might have been able to spin the ball the way that McLean does. But Nolan McLean has that innate ability to just spin the heck out of the ball. And so just comparing his sweeper, his curveball to Matt Harvey's slider and curveball, it's crazy. It's such a different break than what Harvey had. Now, Harvey had a better fastball than Nolan McLean. There's no doubt about that. You watch that start back, and a lot of those strikeouts are just fastballs dotted up in the zone, 97 miles per hour, that guys just can't catch up to. So they're very different pitchers. The dominance is a little bit different, but again, what struck me is just how much harder baseball looks now than it did back then. Not that I could have ever gotten in the box against Matt Harvey and be able to do anything, but just to watch Matt Harvey work after watching McLean work, it's night and day just how much different the game looks in some ways. And that was only 12 years ago, which that's actually kind of crazy that was 12 years ago. But looking at how McLean did it, well, we talked about the pitch mix yesterday, and one of the things that I mentioned was sweeper sinker, and this ability that he has to work east to west, his ability to, whether it's lefty or righty, be able to come in on them or work away from them and to just work the blacks of the plate. And that's what you sort of see, just his ability to pitch on the edges, just off the zone to get the swing and miss, and being able to go back door on really anybody. When you're facing a lefty, to be able to throw a backdoor sweeper and steal strikes. When you're facing a righty, to be able to throw that sinker backdoor if you want to as well. He just has these 2 pitches that give you so much sweep in either direction. And that's a really effective way to just, again, work east to west and primarily work away from batters when you need to, and just have the confidence to throw pitches at any counts and to just keep hitters off balance. He has such a deep arsenal. And so those were the two primary offerings. But we also saw a lot of a curveball that he didn't throw a ton of in the minor leagues, but man, is that a good pitch. Maybe he just didn't have to throw it to get minor leaguers out, but that curveball really just drops off the table. So now we talked about it on yesterday's show again, this ability to work east to west and north to south. Primarily, it's going to be east to west, but he still has the ability, if you're sitting sinker, to be able to go to a more straightforward four-seam fastball up in the zone that's not going to have that same break to it. It's not going to, run in on, your right-handed bat. It's not going to run away from, your lefties, because now, he's got that fastball that he can surprise you with. And then that curveball that just drops off the table. And so now you can play the north-south game, because now all of a sudden, even you're expecting that sweeper that doesn't have that incredible, vertical drop that the curveball does. So now that curveball is just a completely different, axis that the people have to look for. It's just a tough at bat. It really is. I think you are going to see some walk issues at times, because there were certain at bats where he couldn't land that backdoor sweeper. It was off the plate, or he was throwing his sinker off the plate, and it wasn't necessarily close at times. But more often than not, you were seeing an ability to attack the zone. In a 2-0 count, he is perfectly comfortable throwing a sweeper over the heart of the plate and daring you to swing at a pitch that's really tough to hit. You want to swing at a 2-0 sweeper from Nolan McLean, be his guest, because there's a much better shot that you're going to hit that ball into the ground or pop it up than that you're actually going to square it up and drive the baseball a long way. So he really just is able to pitch backwards at times. And I mean, this guy is ready to go, clearly. And so, you can look at this debut in a couple of different ways, right? If you want to be critical of the Mets front office, you can say, where was this guy a month ago? Why did you waste so many bullets for Nolan McLean in AAA? That's one way that you can look at it and say, man, this guy could have helped sooner. And I do share some of that sentiment, because I was calling for his promotion a month ago. Now, the other side of that coin, though, is by keeping him in the minor leagues, you can't just say, oh, well, who Nolan McLean was on August 16th is who he would have been on July 16th. Because there was a real market improvement against left-handed batters in particular over his last 4 starts before this promotion. So there was something developmentally that he was able to accomplish, a box that he had to check. And now a guy that has just been a nightmare for right-handed batters all year, which you can understand, because that sweeper, I don't know how you hit that. I really don't, especially as a righty, when that thing is either breaking away from you, or, oh, actually, wait, you think that you've identified the sweepers, you're going to keep your bat on your shoulder, just like his first MLB strikeout. Randy, chases the first one, says, okay, that pitch is going to break off the plate. So he IDs it a couple more times, but those next 2 pitches he locates in the strike zone on the edge, where, yeah, you might be able to say, okay, I got a swing that's going to be a strike, but good luck actually putting solid contact on that and doing anything more than fouling it off to hang in the at-bat. So you really are seeing what he's made of as a pitcher. And I think the finished product of where he's at looks a lot better now, I think, especially against the lefties, than it might have a month ago, because, maybe that curveball got a little bit better. He flipped the usage where instead of going to the 4-seam as much against lefties, I believe he flipped it more, sinker heavy. And so when you're thinking about a left-handed batter, he's able to work them with his sinker in a way that he's working righties with his sweeper. So I think it's a little bit too cut and dry to say that guy looked awesome, he should have been here a month ago. There's layers to this. Now, there's also the PPI, and you cannot ignore it, but it also makes more sense, because if you are a front office and you're having these long conversations, a lot of people voicing their opinions, and you're trying to map out your season, when you have guys coming off the injured list at the timeline when they could have promoted McLean, you can understand wanting to see what you have with your MLB depth. That's part of the conversation. you have his development and the fact that he looks great against righties, but against lefties, looks good, but there is, a game plan of attack. Guys are able to get to him a little bit from the left side. So there was something else he had to work on. And then the other part of the conversation is the PPI. And the PPI, for those of you who aren't aware, is the prospect promotion incentive. This was put in place in the last CBA to incentivize teams to not hold back their top prospect if they're good enough to break camp. So if they allow a top prospect to break camp and they win the Rookie of the Year, you get a draft pick. Or if they finish top 3 in the Cy Young or the MVP, or is it if they win? I think it's if they finish in the top 3 of the Cy Young or the MVP within their first 3 years of service, you get a draft pick. So with that in mind, when you watch this kid pitch, there is no reason that Nolan McLean cannot win the Rookie of the Year next year. If he stays healthy and he can build off of this season, and he's going to get now some run in this rotation to close out the year, there is no reason that he can't or that he won't break camp. He absolutely should. I mean, this guy should not be back in the minors ever again. That's how good of a debut it was. We'll see how it goes from here. But the point is, he should be on the roster come opening day. And if he has a full season in the Mets rotation, there's a very real possibility that he is going to win the Rookie of the Year next year. And then you get a draft pick. And draft picks are so valuable, especially for a team like the Mets that is active in free agency and can lose draft picks. They are a luxury tax team that has draft picks docked and dropped in the draft. So getting another draft pick, and more importantly, getting the bonus pool money for that draft pick, is invaluable to the New York Mets. And if you are weighing out the odds and you are making these decisions, you're thinking about all these things, I can understand how you come to the decision, let's wait until after that date, August 15th. Let's have him make his debut on the 16th so that he maintains that rookie status and he helps us down the stretch, final 5-6 weeks of the season, final 40 games, whatever it is, right? Maybe it probably won't be 8 turns because I doubt he's going to stick to a 5-man rotation, but probably 7 turns potentially. Gets enough experience. Everything's great, maintains that rookie status, and next year, let him go. So I think when you look at the full picture, it still makes sense the Mets did it the way they did. Now, I want to talk about Jonah Tong, so we're going to do that in the next segment, and then I also want to go through, because Tong, for those of you who aren't aware, made his AAA debut, another one of the Mets' top pitching prospects. So we'll touch on that in the next segment, and I will also go over what's next for this Mets team. Can this be a real turning point, or is this just one fun game and we go back to watching the Mets spiral moving forward? So we'll go through all of that to close out the show here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or if you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race, like maybe you like Jaden Daniels at plus 1,000, or maybe you believe the Bills are going to get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. Crown your champion in August. You can do all of that over at FanDuel, or you can also parlay your division winner dark horses into the same bet. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure to become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where you get updates from me. Anytime news breaks on the Mets, you can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways, and you get the live graphics sent to your phone each day, so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, before we talk about where the Mets go from here, let's just go real quick through Jonah Tong's debut in AAA. You had to wonder, how would he hold up, right? Going up to the top level of the minor leagues. We've seen a lot of guys hit a real skid when they get to Syracuse when it comes to some of the Mets' top pitching prospects. Jonah Tong, No problem. His stuff's going to play anywhere. Goes 5 2/3 of scoreless ball, allows 3 hits, 2 walks, struck out 9 in his AAA debut. Now, I don't think we're going to see Jonah Tong this year, but next year, there's a real good shot that we see Tong factoring into the Mets rotation mix. It might not be early because you're going to start the season with so much depth that you have to go through between McLean and Sproat and Christian Scott potentially, and all the guys, the veterans who are on guaranteed deals, Holmes, Manaea, Senga, David Peterson, Tyler McGill, maybe Montas. Like, you're going to have a lot of guys that might be ahead of him on the depth chart, but Jonah Tong is going to fight his way onto this roster at some point next year because he is very, very good and just a really nice debut. It's going to be good to see him finish off this year in Syracuse, get a handful of starts before their season ends, and that will be a nice launching point to his year next year, where I'm sure he'll start out in AAA, but he could be up early potentially if the Mets need an arm in that rotation. Now, let's get back to this season. Little League Classic today. ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball, Clay Holmes versus George Kirby. I talked about this a little bit. I think it was the series preview, but what I addressed on the Little League Classic is sometimes an event like this, it's just good for your team to have some bonding, especially a team right now that has so many new faces. As Lindor said after the game, he's like, it's going to be a long day, but it's going to be fun. He said all the right things. The Mets have an off day on Monday, so this is a game to get up for. And, we'll see how Clay Holmes does. That's the one big question mark, but I mean, the Mets clearly have faith in him to figure this out and to fight through what I guess they believe is some type of a wall that he has to just get past, but that the stuff is good. And health-wise, he's still in a good spot. So we'll see. I mean, if Clay Holmes was able to get himself right, and now you have McLean in this rotation, those are your two back-end starters, and then you got a top of the rotation that you could be pretty excited about. So, I think this rotation could get stabilized a lot quicker than we would have expected with the addition of McLean, and if Holmes can figure things out, because right now it sort of feels like they're banking on that. Otherwise, I don't really know where they're going here with this rotation, if it is Brandon Sproat coming up and when that happens. But what I will say is this is an opportunity for Holmes. He's got ample rest to have a good start and to maybe really help the Mets get through these next couple weeks before you get to September, when it would be much easier to bring Brandon Sproat up if you think he'll help your team and lengthen that rotation, because then you have the September call-ups and you can just bring them up without having to option anybody or anything else. But it'll be interesting to see what Holmes does. That's the one part of this game I'm kind of the least confident in. The other part is Edwin Diaz just threw 31 pitches. So I don't know if Diaz will be good to go for a back-to-back here. You do have the off day on Monday, but I kind of wonder if this sets up a situation where Ryan Helsley is getting a save opportunity. And I kind of think that might be a good thing. Now, Helsley has not pitched well, but let's just envision best case scenario of today's events. Clay Holmes shocks us all. He's the first pitcher to get through 6 innings. Wouldn't that be crazy? The Mets score some runs. They end up, let's just call it a 5-2 lead going into the 9th inning. And here comes Helsley for a save opportunity. Helsley with a big lead, 3-run lead, getting a chance to be back in a familiar role. Maybe he needs to get a save under his belt to then rewire himself back in. Who knows? But those are the two things that are most interesting to me about this game. It's the beginning of the game and the end of the game. Reed Garrett should be good to go. Tyler Rogers with his rubber arm should be good to go. Helsley got a day, so you think he might be good to go. I think both of those guys would be pitching 3 times in 4 nights. So there's that side of it. But I am curious how they navigate the pitching side of things. But this is an opportunity for the Mets to take the momentum from this game and to win a series. And if they can do that, you have 3 coming up against the Nationals after their off day on Monday, where the Mets' top of the rotation is going to start. David Peterson, Kodai Senga, and Sean Manaea. Now, Peterson's coming off a bad start, but you're going to trust the track record. Senga's coming off his best start since he got off the injured list. And Sean Manaea, while it wasn't a great start, I still felt like there was flashes. And so we'll see. But you can look at the road ahead. If the Mets can win on Sunday, beat the Nationals, all of a sudden the momentum will start to change and you could hopefully get rid of all of the angst and frustration and everything of this brutal stretch that just went on and maybe turn things on here, because the reality is this team is still in the division race. While it doesn't feel like it, they still are. And the wild card race, they got a game and a half lead over the Reds, who are playing some tough games against the Brewers, but the Brewers will just not be defeated. So we'll see if that trend holds up on Sunday for their game. But if it does, and the Mets win, now you're 2.5 games up. And if the Phillies lose, then all of a sudden you're 4 games back. Now, the Phillies are playing the Nationals right now, and they've lost 2 of 3 this weekend. So I don't want to say that you should just take the Nationals lightly, but it is a team that the Mets should be able to beat this upcoming week. I mean, again, the Phillies just have been losing to them, so I don't want to say, oh, that's guaranteed. But the point is, if this Mets team is going to get back in it with these now 39 games left to play, it looks a lot like what it did on Saturday as a turning point, finding a way to win a series on Sunday, and then maybe you see a good turn through with Peterson, Senga, and Minaya. If all of that happens, and that is asking a lot, because that would pretty much be asking for the Mets to have an entire turn through this rotation that didn't look horrible and actually looked really good, I just think everything could actually fall into place, because I don't think this bullpen's actually bad. Get a day off on Monday. If you get some length out of those 3 starting pitchers in the National Series, that could take some pressure off. And then McLean's going to open up the series against the Braves. So maybe he can give you another shot in the arm going up against your rival, tough environment. And if he pitches well there, well, all right. Now you got a piece of this rotation that you're really excited to see. And I think everyone's going to be anyway from this point on. And maybe this was the thing. Who knows? Baseball seasons are weird like that. But the bottom line is the Mets are still in a playoff position. Hasn't felt like it. It's been an awful stretch. Sometimes, though, that means that you're due for another positive one. And I'm just realizing something there on the screen, the whole final segment. But shout out to FanDuel. That's where we're at, though, with this team. I lean into the optimism whenever I can, and it's hard not to feel optimistic after this one game, but I also want to put some realism into this as well, and this one game cannot cure all, but it shook up a team that desperately needed it. And then if other good things can start to stack, if Clay Holmes can figure it out for a start, that stacks up a little bit. By the way, what 2 pitches was Nolan McLean thriving with? Sinker, sweeper. What pitches does Clay Holmes have? Sinker, sweeper. So maybe Clay Holmes can watch some film, or has watched some film, and maybe he uses what he saw work so effectively for McLean, although he doesn't have quite the same sweeper. Probably is a better sinker, but we'll see what Clay Holmes at 130 innings looks like. But the point stands, you need other things to go well, but you need that first thing. We thought the first thing was going to be Pete Alonso breaking the record. It wasn't. They went on another slide right after that. Maybe it's McLean and this debut that gets his team on track, or maybe it really is a hopeless cause, and this team still ends up in the dumps. But for a day, let's be happy and positive and hope that the New York Mets can win this series against the Mariners and plot a course toward a better finish for this season. And that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. On tomorrow's show, of course, breaking down whatever happens in the final game of this series, and we'll see what else we're going to talk about. I do want to do some check-ins on the minor leagues. There's been a lot of fun stuff that's happened over the weekend, over the past week, really. So Jonathan Santucci, a great game. Jet Williams hit the ground running so far in Syracuse. So maybe we'll do some prospect stuff with the off day coming up, but that's going to be all again for this show. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game at the show that takes you on all the action of Major League Baseball with insight from local experts and league-wide experts who will take you through all the games. You can find Locked On MLB Game on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.